Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make a stencil using Cricut Explore, and then I'm also going to show you how to actually stencil it to your wall. If you're like me and you're a new Cricut user, you want to kind of get in and start doing a lot of things, but if you're anything like me, you spent maybe a lot of time screwing things up. I think I've wasted $10, $15 and probably 10 or 15 hours of my time. Or I know when I first bought it, I spent a lot of time looking up some videos, so I thought I would put this together as sort of a newbie to this, show you how to do it, and hopefully you can learn something, or this will help you decide to take the plunge and actually purchase a Cricut, which I've been very happy with. So what I'm going to show you today is a stencil that is just a little vine with some leaves that I've previously created myself. So what we're going to do is I started a new project and I'm going to insert this image. I happen to have a piece of stencil material that is about 4 inches. So what I'm going to do, because I want to give myself a little bit of room on the top and bottom of this, I'm actually going to set this to 3¼ inches high. It's 12 inches wide, so I know I'm okay there. I just want to make sure that when I'm actually stenciling it to the wall, that I'm not going to actually put paint on the wall. So this is where it gets pretty easy. So I have this generally placed. I hit go. I learned to not spend too much time on that first screen because as you probably noticed here, it just moved the image for me anyway. So I want to give myself a little bit of room on the left and right. So I'm going to move it over. I also know I have 4 inches of material, so I'm going to move it down a little bit. It's roughly centered. I don't know that it really matters. I always leave my material size the same, even if I know I'm not working with that size material. I'm going to hit go. And in this case, I'm actually going to use a custom setting. You'll see this actually automatically came up, but there's a million settings here. I found that using the 0.4 millimeter setting works best for me. My material, which I can leave a link in, or excuse me, leave a link in the comments where I got it on Amazon. I've tried to buy from Hobby Lobby. They have a thicker stencil material, but I can't seem to get the settings right on the Cricut machine to cut it, so I use a little bit of a thinner material that's actually less than 0.4 millimeters. I think it's like 0.17, but this setting seems to work for me. And I'll be back in a minute because I am going to get this loaded and I'll show you how to do it. Hi, we're back. I'm going to show you how to cut my material. Again, I'm going to cut it to about 4 inches, and then we'll get it loaded in a second. But actually, I got a helper who decided to show up, CJ, and she's going to help me actually do this. So like I said, we want to cut this to about 4 inches. So I have a little cutter here, and this material is thin enough that it's pretty easy to cut. So all I'm going to do is measure this to approximately 4 inches. Does not have to be perfect. Okay, and CJ, do you wanna make the cut here?
Yeah.
So you just want to push down on that and then slide it down. You can hear it making the cut. Okay, so then we got our 4 inch worth of material here. And what we're going to do is we are going to get our mat. And again, CJ, you want to help do this as well? So what we want to do is, if we can see this, if we can see it, you can put all you want to do is just put the transparency down nice and flat. So once you rub that nice and flat, there you go. So now we have the stencil on the mat, and what we're going to do is we are going to load it into the Cricut machine. So here, once you do that, you always want to make sure that you get it under the tabs. There we go. And we have our setting on custom because that's what we actually need in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of pressure on this to push it in, and then we're going to hit load. Okay, and the machine's going to get loaded in, and then we are going to be ready to go. Our blade is in, our button is blinking, and you can hit. And what we are going to do is we're just going to watch it cut. This is a pretty simple cut, so it shouldn't take very long. As you can see, I only have a regular blade in there. I have this set to just cut one time. I found with this material it doesn't need the deep cut material or anything like that. So this should run pretty quickly. As you can see, it's almost done. It's just making the last cut. The only tricky thing about this is when we actually take this out, because the design is so thin, it's a little tricky to get it out. So what you want to do is just hit the unload button, and we've unloaded it. Now, what we can do is just get this off of the mat. You want to take it a little bit slow because, as you can maybe see, some of the cutout material is actually sticking to the mat. So you just want to take it nice and slow. CJ, you want to try and help me here?
Yeah, sure.
We're gonna go nice and slow along. Get your fingers in there to get all of that out. And you just don't want to rush it. You don't have to be in a hurry.
Because it could like rip the paper.
It could definitely rip the paper. So now we're left with our transparency. And now all you need to do is just kind of get your fingers in there. And you may have to just tear it
a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit to get it out. Sometimes it doesn't make a perfect cut. And with these leaves, I have a couple of tight cuts in here. But with just a little bit of pressure, you should be able to get it out. We're almost done, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, one more piece. Get it out. And this last leaf. And we're done. So CJ, what do you think? We got this little piece. As you can see, this is the part that got pulled out. We're left with our transparency. And what I'm going to do in a couple minutes is I will show you how to actually stencil this to the wall. That's the pretty fun part. So what I have here is it's called Easy Tack. It's repositionable adhesive. And what you want to do is actually use it on the stencil. I found that it makes it a little bit easier to keep to the wall. I've seen some people say that you should actually use tape. I think it's actually easier because this is repositionable. I've been able to use it, I don't know, 5-10 different times. So I have a brown paper bag here just to make sure I don't get the spray all over the place. And you don't have to put a whole lot of this on. So what you want to do is go back a couple inches here. Make sure that you don't get it in anybody's hair, right? And you just want to lightly go across it. Not a whole lot. You just want enough to be able to hold it. And it usually takes about a minute for it to dry. One thing I've learned is if you put this up immediately, it will actually really cause issues with sticking to the wall. So you actually want to let it dry on the stencil first. So we'll be back in about a minute. Okay, we're back yet again, and we're getting ready to put our stencil up. It's been about a minute or so. As you can see, we're shaking up some paint. So this is just some acrylic paint. I think it was like 80 cents or something. It's white, that's what we're going to use. So I also have, as you can see, I have a styrofoam plate with a paper towel. I have a styrofoam bowl, which I'm going to put the paint in. And then I have this brush. I've read a lot and I've seen a lot of different opinions about whether you should use a stencil brush, a roller brush. I've tried both. They both work. I actually tend to like this, which I just randomly got in a, I was trying to buy stencil brushes and this came with it, and I found I've had pretty good luck with it. So what you want to do is just pour a little bit of paint. You don't want to put too much in, as you can see, hopefully. I only have very little in the bottom. And then what you want to do is you want to take your brush and just dab it in there just a little bit. You're not trying to get a lot of paint on here. What you're actually trying to do is just get the paint inside the brush. So what I do is then dab it into the bottom of the bowl, and then what I'd like you to do is actually dab it on the paper towel. That may be a little excessive, but what you don't want is a whole lot of paint. So now we have our stencil that has the Easy Tack on it. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I'm actually going to put this on the wall. So you may get a little nauseous for a second while we move the camera around. So this is my kitchen. We have green paint. So what I'm going to do is, just to make this even, because I'm going to be doing multiple panels, is I'm going to get this up in the corner about as straight as I possibly can get. Now what's really nice about this easy tack is, guess what? I put it up and now I don't have to hold it. What you can see is it's easy enough to get back off. So you want to push it down a little bit, not too hard. You're not trying to grind it into the wall. Now that's up. Now I have my brush that's got the paint on it, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly dab. Now, as I said in the beginning of the video, I've made about a dozen mistakes trying to do this, and the main mistake was trying to go too heavy. I can show you at some point the wall in which we've been practicing a lot of mistakes. So now all I'm doing is, now when I'm ready to coat again, I'm just going back into my bowl. I'm lightly dabbing, and then I'm dabbing it back out on the plate again. And then I'm just going to come back up and I'm going to fill in all the places on the stencil where the holes are. You don't want to go too heavy. I've found actually 2 coats seems to work. I try to get most of it down and most of it so that most of the paint underneath is covered where I want to stencil, and then what I will do is I'll come back for a second coat. So if you are an impatient person like me, this is where you will usually start getting a little bit lazy and trying to hurry up and coming back into this and trying to go too fast. That is definitely not what you want to do. As you can see, this actually takes, even though this is only about 4 by, I think this is 4 by 10 or 4 by 11, it actually takes a little bit of time because you are not wanting to be too heavy with the paint. So the pause, the 2 or 3 seconds it's taking me each time before I come back up to paint, is because, again, I'm going back into the bowl, putting some paint on it, and then I'm dabbing it back out again. So that is pretty well covered at this point, but I think I'm going to let this dry for about maybe 5-10 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and hit it with a second coat, and so I'll be back with you in about 10. Actually, before we go, let me get a little bit of a close-up here, just so you can see how it's covered. You can see it's a little blotchy, and it's maybe not as perfectly covered as I want, but again, we'll hit that on the second coat in a few minutes.
Hi guys, we're back, and now let's see what happened.
Okay, so as you can see, it's been drying for about 10 or 15 minutes, and there's a couple spots that it looked pretty good before it was drying, but now that it's dry, I can see a couple of the places that I missed. So what I'm going to do is, again, take my foam brush, and again, dip it in. You don't want to get too much on here. It's going to actually cover a little bit better this time. And just going to fill in. I don't want to necessarily fill in where it doesn't need anything, because I don't want it to get up underneath the stencil. And I think there's only 2 or 3 places that I really need to come back in and fill. And again, this is one of those things where less is more. I've learned from screwing this up enough times. You don't want to go too much on the paint. So I would say that we're done. So again, I'm going to give this about maybe a half an hour this time, and then we'll come back when it's dry and we'll pull the stencil off and see how we did.
We're back, and we've waited 1 hour.
Yep, so we waited about an hour. We're going to take a look and see if this stencil worked. So you want to take it, I've found you want to kind of take it slow. It also lets you uh, hurry up and close it if you realize you screwed it up. So I like to use two hands just to make sure, because sometimes the tacky adhesive makes it stick a little bit to the wall harder than I want it to. So you'll see that with the exception of one part where, if you can see, the paint stuck uh, to the stencil a little bit, which is easy enough to fix with just a brush. I found that despite what you read and what you'll see from some other websites and blogs, this is never perfect. You'll always get screw-ups here and there. I've noticed sometimes it depends on what your paint is, but if you look, hopefully what you can see is that where it did stick to the wall, it is really good. And again, like I said, I'll just go back at it with a little brush to touch it up. But hopefully this gives you some confidence that this will work if you try it. It's not very hard. I would say in total, I probably spent, I don't know, maybe an hour on this. And you also shouldn't get frustrated if you screw it up. I have done this a couple times. It's worked most of the time. I'll show you one time that it didn't work, where it sort of pulled some of the paint away from the wall. But then you can also see a time where it did work, where we actually put some owls up there as well. So thanks for watching the video, and hope you'll watch again soon.